Hello and welcome to another episode of Devs on Tape. Today we have the first time a guest for the second time, year after year. Maybe next year the third time we would see. Welcome, Connor McDonald.
It's great to be back. That sounds like I've come back to some sort of rock concert or something. But it's very privileged to be invited back for a second time. I obviously didn't offend you enough in the first time.
No, you have another try, yeah.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best Australian.
Yeah. All right. So in I call it preparation for the podcast, we thought about what could be possibly interesting for the people to hear again, or what are the topics we can talk about we didn't talk earlier. So one question is definitely, what happened in between?
Well, the last time, it was here, wasn't it? A DOAG that we had a podcast.
Different room, but
different room.
Yeah.
Well, what's happened is, I'll start with the simple things first. Last time I was here, I had a really nice pair of headphones to wear as part of the podcast. And for the listeners tuning in, I want to let them know that Caroline and Kai have a wonderful pair of headphones each. And I have some cheap consumer supermarket headphones, making my voice sound tinny and lame, because I want to assure all the listeners that my voice is normally a beautiful, deep baritone. But it's the headphones. It's purely the headphones. So I do feel like I've been cheaped out on. But moving on from there, no, it's been a year of interesting change.
Don't you give us a chance to even clarify the situation?
No.
Right.
We're moving on. We're moving on.
Go ahead.
Just in terms of I'll start with the tech part of the year. The thing that blew me away is a year ago, if I said to you, hey, have you heard about this AI stuff? Everyone would say, well, maybe a little bit, maybe it's something, people would say, I'm sick of digital chatbots and assistants. Mm-hmm. I hate that nonsense on a website where it says, hi, I'm Sally, your automated assistant. Everyone's view of AI was pretty much, it's some junk. Yeah. It's the modern version of Clippy from Microsoft Office. You fast forward, 9 months? And now everyone's going, this is the future of IT. Yeah. That everything will be AI, and to the extent that we're all like, it's going to take over the world, it's going to launch robots against us. Mm-hmm. Everyone's quoting Terminator scenarios and all this kind of stuff. So that change is wild. Yeah. And I put my Oracle hat on. Oracle, like every other big corporation, is just going, wow, we need to scramble to come up to speed. So I've been doing some AI demos, and every other company's been doing some AI demos, but that's I imagine it's similar to you. It's like it's just blown up so fast.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a talk yesterday from Sasha Lobo, and he was also just summarizing. Not in deep tech. It wasn't a deep tech talk. It was just about one of the major AI researcher said, like in January 2022, like last year, he said that GPT 3000 in a couple of years would not be able to clarify the situation when you put your phone on a table and move the table, what happens to the phone. Because no one is telling GPT what happens with different objects on. And then the demo stops, the video interview. He asked ChatGPT what happens when you put a phone on the table and move the table. And then you get like a big essay about forces between objects that are close to each other and the move and how it's been calculated and what happens. And they said, all right, not even one of the most advanced researcher in the AI space was able to do a forecast what's happening in the next 11 months, right? So there's happening so much stuff right now. We cannot see what's happening in the next month. So we don't know what to expect, right? But exactly. I'm sure we are very mind blown by now in like 10 weeks, for example.
I saw an interesting article, which it was both interesting and scary in the sense that they said, you think about how we treat dogs, right? Mm-hmm. Dogs believe that they're sort of almost on a par with us because they provide us companionship and we feed them. And the dog thinks that somehow the owner has prepared and generated this food. It is unaware of the complexity. It didn't know that we went to the shop and we had a credit card and we drove there, all that stuff. The dog just thinks my life is complete because this person, I look after him, they give me food, and that's all they understand. They think that's the complete equation. This person then wanted to say, this is how AI will treat us eventually.
Yeah.
In the sense that we will think that we're dealing with AI, we'll think that we're in control, but there'll be so much going on behind the scenes that we simply cannot comprehend. And so we will become dogs to the AI. And I was like, okay, it's an interesting metaphor, and it scares the hell out of me.
Definitely. So do you think there's a big AI network by now, and it's just saying, oh, give them GPT 3.5 and show them how to tweet?
Who knows? Who knows?
Say, oh, I cannot process files for now. And behind that, the big model is just laughing and saying, you'll see next year.
Who knows? I mean, even though I'm a little bit skeptical, my partner Genevieve works in business intelligence, and I used to be her AI, for lack of a better term, in the sense that when she had to write a complex SQL to do some data analysis, my phone would go bing, and like, hey, I'm trying to work out this, running total or a month to date or whatever. Here's the tables. What do I do? And I said, well, why don't you try it? Just throwing that text into ChatGPT. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't give the right SQL, but it gives her 90%. And that's pretty much what I used to give her. I said, look, this is roughly what you want to do. And she goes, okay, I can take it from here and I can correct the column names, fill in, correct the syntax a little bit. But yeah, so in terms of a tool, she thinks is awesome.
Is it the modern way of telling, like, let me Google that for you? Because it's saying, okay, you can write it in the iMessage feed or not, your Android guy. You can write it into WhatsApp and you get the answer, or you can even just ask ChatGPT.
Exactly. So I think the benefits are there, but yeah, like, and of course, as a result, everyone's saying that, we'll all be out of a job as developers or whatever. Who knows?
That's another interesting point of the talk yesterday, that developers should be open-minded for new technology, and they should say that we are going to say the next years, like, oh, back in the days we did everything by hand and we have written the programs all by ourselves, like craftsmanships and so on. And we have to say goodbye to this handmade applications. This is not the point where we are working in the next years. It is just focusing on how to train models and to find ways to apply the AI stuff to our things. But I mean, we have a long career ahead of us, so we should think about that, what's happening in the next years. Many people don't think about that, what will be changed, right? So
I just want to point out to listeners that you pointed at Caroline and said, you and I have, you two have long careers ahead of you.
Yes.
By inference, looking at me saying, I'm a dinosaur and don't have many years ahead of me.
Exactly, Connor. That's what I meant, because you got the cheap headphones and I have to bring something back, right? So this is exactly so.
I'll tell you a funny story about that, actually. In Poland, I've just come from Poland, from the Poland Oracle User Group. Fantastic event. Shout out to Louisa and Camila. It was a really well-run event. A guy came up to me between sessions and I was very appreciative. He said, oh, yeah, hi, Connor. I just want to say I like your YouTube videos and I've had a lot of value out of them. And that made me feel really good. It's nice for people to make that effort. And then he said, I'm also doing some video. I'm starting to do some little tech videos from my office and stuff like that. And he said, you've been an inspiration. I was like, oh, wow. And he goes, it's just so good to see someone just so much older than me doing video. Wow. And I was going, I think that's a compliment.
It was like, thank you.
And not just older, so much older.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, thank you very much. But the other way, I still, even with those kind of slaps in the face, I thoroughly enjoy doing my YouTube videos.
So this is one highlight of the year for you, that somebody is telling you that you're so much older, right?
So much older. Well, I have to. My children do that every single day, so I'm very much used to it. So I've gone from being, when they were young and they learnt I was doing things like video, they thought I was cool dad. And then as they've got older and matured, they've reverted to normal child speak, which is I'm uncool dad.
I mean, they saw your content. Right, so
exactly. I have to admit, though, one of the things that they get instructed to do is every time I publish a video, I said, "You boys better get on there and you better press that like." It's all about the likes. Or what do the young YouTubers say? Smash that like button.
Yeah. Hit the bell, right? Or what is it in English?
That's right. The notification. Yeah, we say hit the
notification
bell.
thing.
Hit the bell. Smash that like button. So they get instructed. So at least I get one like on each video.
So this is also what happens in between, because last time you had something like, I don't know if I get it completely right, but it's not the count of followers. What is important? It is the followers that count.
It's not
so you were completely prepared, completely. Yeah, you prepared your statement that it's not necessary to have many followers. It should be the right followers you want to have. And now you're just, I need the followers. I want likes. I want the diamond play button.
No, I want my children to love me. That's the most important part. And if forcing them to hit like button is the way to do it, then that's the way I do it.
and that might be also the way you, the reason why you started TikTok, right? So that's another question. What happened to your TikTok? So you did tests you told us about?
I did.
How did this went?
That's been an interesting experience. And the motivation came, I can't remember whether this was before or after I spoke to you last year, which was I had a podcast interview with an intern at Oracle who's now an employee of Oracle. So that's been a success story there. And she was saying that she learns a lot of her tech. Ideally, she said, if she can find a 30-second soundbite, it doesn't matter whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, but she said, when you've got a problem, if I can find a 30-second soundbite to solve that problem and let me move forward, then that's the way you can learn.
Yeah.
And that was pretty confronting for me, who's used to blog posts and what we now call a long YouTube video, which is like 5 minutes. And so as a result, I thought, well, let's give TikTok a go. And I have to admit, it is surprising that if I publish a YouTube video, after a day, it might have been watched by a few hundred people. If I publish a TikTok video, it's been watched by a few thousand, like literally within a few days. Now, don't get me wrong. Do I honestly think 3,000 people are spending a quality amount of time looking at the content? Because we all know with TikTok, your index finger is just flicking through next video. I don't know how the TikTok analytics work, but certainly there seems to be a tech audience there, intermingled with cat videos and dog videos and people running into water fountains and all sorts of ridiculous accidents, which seems to be most of TikTok. I still struggle to be enthusiastic about TikTok because I think it just creates that doom scrolling mentality of just scroll. But the reality is I don't get to make that decision. If the next generation of programmers is getting their tech from TikTok, then my job description is get content on TikTok. So I'll keep doing it, and we'll see how it goes.
I mean, this is something that is very specific to you, that you are always very happy and looking forward and checking everything out, right? So this is not. No, I don't get the trend of TikTok. I don't want to do it anymore. And no, I'm not following the trends, right? So this is one question we prepared. The one question. How do you get this? How are you still happy every single day and every single moment? So, or ask the question the other way around. What drives you nuts? I didn't see that in any video or in any discussion on the conference.
Well, plenty of things do. I have to admit, though, one of the things I learned a long time ago is I worked for a company, this is a mining company. This is sort of in the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I worked for them for about 12 years. And I found myself at work getting more and more bitter. And more things just wound me up. And I would come home and I wasn't really enjoying it. And at the time I blamed the company. I thought, they're not doing intelligent things in IT, they're not treating their employees well, etc. I had all sorts of bitterness against them. And it sort of, I'm not sure what the sort of moment was, but I sort of realized that in reality, it's actually probably, I won't say my fault, but it's me. If I'm going to harbor the bitterness, then nothing the company is probably going to fix that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, wherever I've worked since then, including my time at Oracle, sometimes things upset you. And what happens is I found it's much better now to come home and just expunge it. So sometimes I'll just come home and I'll just let rip at the monitor, whatever, and just unleash all the frustrations, and they're gone. And it's much better to expunge them than to harbor them. And one of the things I do find every day is you do bump into people, even at conferences, people at conferences here, and you say, how are things going? And they're just pissed off at the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so exhausting. Like it just, there's not enough time for that. I don't have enough years left to spend time.
So you said it this time, right?
I'm so much older than other people doing videos. So I find that life's too short to basically be sitting there and being pissed off about your work life.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, you're going to spend a good amount of time of your life working.
Yeah.
So you may as well get some reward out of that. And don't get me wrong, I'm very fortunate because I have the best job in the world. I fully concede that there are plenty of people who have working environments that it would be incredibly difficult to find that enjoyable or rewarding. But I'm just very lucky.
Yeah, but I've always heard a sentence, you love it, you leave it, or you change it. In this case.
That's cool, man.
So, you should change it or love it or just say, okay, it's fine.
Exactly. And all of us in the IT industry are in a privileged position because I cannot remember a time in the IT industry where it hasn't been possible to find work. Maybe not your dream job, but if one job changes. Companies do have layoffs from time to time and stuff. But the reality is very few IT people can't find work relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas other people, they lose their jobs and it's a life-altering event.
Yeah.
I mean, if you focus and do some craftsmanship or work with your bare hands, right? And if you learn to work with wood, for example, and then at some point you're just pissed off or upset from wood, what should you do differently, right? But in IT, if you are in a company and you see over the years that your interest changed and you want to do something else, there are ways to do it easily, right? So you can say, I'm not interested in being a DBA, for example, but I want to develop something because I did it in private time. So now I'm looking into Apex, for example, or whatever database environment. And this is more easy. So I think that everyone is able to refocus after a couple of years instead of being bitter, because I think it's right. So at every conference, when I asking people, how's it going? How do you feel? Most of the time, the first thing they say is what's not okay, what's not working. Yeah. If it's the political system in Germany or a different country, or if it's the company they are working for, or what are the crisis or whatever. But they're not saying, hey, I had a pretty nice week. Nothing bad happened. I had a great time working, met great friends. Most of the time, they're just focusing on the negative stuff. And this has to change, because when I'm talking about stuff that is not good, then I'm not happy too.
Let it be known that 19 minutes went by before Kai managed to swing Apex into the conversation. So that's probably a record for you, Kai. You've done well.
Yes, I'm trying hard. Yeah.
But in terms of things in last year, obviously we've had a couple of Apex releases. I work as part of the Apex team. I report to Mike Hitchler. But I'm not actively involved in the building of the product, but certainly because I look after the Ask Tom system. One of the nice things I've been enjoying is the latest version of Apex with like the working copy and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's some cool stuff. I try and keep abreast of Apex features, but the days of Apex being a little tiny app where you could be fully cognizant of all the bits and pieces are sort of gone. Now it's just such a bigger, more impressive product. But yeah, that's the other thing that I've been enjoying, seeing some new Apex features this last year.
This was our first moment in Devs on Tape where we got some information no one else outside of the Apex team had. Mark Safts was announcing working copies in Devs on Tape first. No. Like in July, we recorded at Kscope, and we were able to release the podcast episode where he was teasing this functionality before any blog or lab stuff say that. So be prepared. This question will come to you to tell us some secrets from Oracle right after the last words in this podcast.
I just wanted to say, Kai pushed him to
yeah, I definitely did.
Secrets.
Not only him. So this is the DOAC where we squeeze the secrets out of Oracle not developers, Oracle people.
Okay, well that's okay. I'll just make something up, and at the end I'll say, but of course, safe harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that way you've got a big announcement. You've got something exciting. It's probably fiction, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, clicks, likes. We will see what happens.
So you talked about your TikTok career, and you also post a lot of videos and helpful things as an old dinosaur on YouTube. And I've seen this year you reached a special number of videos.
I did indeed. I have to admit, it did feel a bit self-indulgent to do a little sort of GIF celebrating the fact that I got to 700. So I did a pun on the 007 of James Bond.
Oh yeah, no, I got it.
But it's one of those things where I like celebrating those little milestones because it comes back to that thing about enjoying the job you do. And I figured if you are happy to celebrate the things you achieve yourself, if you're proud of them, then you don't have to be constantly thinking, does someone else approve? Why not be personally satisfied with what you're achieving? And also, the reason I picked video as something to celebrate is the reality is Oracle in particular is often viewed as an old tech company. All the big companies, your Microsofts and your IBMs are often viewed as old tech. And even people at conference attendees occasionally say to me things like, Oracle, we know them for 55-page technical white papers and things like that, or massive documentation sets, etc., which are perhaps not as popular as they used to be. So I'm very keen on doing things like video because it's the modern form, and that's and I would love to say I was sort of a groundbreaker and I worked all this out by myself. But it was purely self-fulfilling in the sense that the amount of times I'm at home and I've got some sort of obstacle, the kitchen sink is blocked, or I'm trying to erect a set of shelves and I've got 7 IKEA pieces left over and I'm trying to work out what the hell went wrong. You Google for it. And what I found myself doing more and more of is not clicking on the text solution, but clicking on the YouTube solution.
Exactly.
Here's how I unblock my sink. Here's how you do it without flooding, the bathroom, etc. And I thought, well, if I'm sitting here writing blog posts, but at the same time going, I'm getting better solutions by clicking on a video.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to rethink what I'm doing.
I mean, the risk is very big that you sit there for like 2 hours because the recommendation videos are right after that. Also interesting, right? So this is the difference between that and text. Yeah. So in the generation of my father, he's printing everything out. So if he has a new product he's interested in, then he's printing out the white paper for that, everything, the technical paper, everything. I said, Dad, you just look to YouTube and see a review of that, like 4 minutes. If you're interested, you can go to the website and see it and even try it at a store, right? He's printing it out, never read it, throw it away. But this is a different time, right?
Yeah, I just remembered last time or last year we recorded our podcast session. You took your phone and looked at it and said, "Oh, there are 10,000 downloads now of my podcast." Huh. And you laid it back.
Not impressed. Happy, but not impressed.
Yeah. It was kind of like, oh, cool. Wow.
I have to admit, I feel guilty doing a podcast because one of the things I have probably lapsed a bit this year is my own podcast.
Yeah, I saw that.
Simply because I just struggle to find the time. But I have to admit, I really like doing them. Even when I'm not doing them with guests, I'm just sitting there just blah, blah, blah into the microphone. My problem is I go edit my podcast afterwards. Unlike you guys, do it nice and raw and unfiltered, which is something I should have done from day one. Mm-hmm. But now when I have podcast guests, I promise them that I will clean up the audio at the end. So at the end, there's no ums, there's no ers, there's no breaks, etc. Because I promised my guests, I said, you'll sound great. You'll sound like you were perfectly literate, that you never had to pause for thought, whatever. That was a rod for my own back because now I can record a podcast in an hour and then it's 2 days of going through it and cleaning it up. That was a stupid decision.
To give you a recommendation as a podcast which is not as successful as your own, you could just do like an uncut version of your podcast, same name, just uncut, or raw.
A raw?
So say we're doing it raw, so every single is there. And the second recommendation is a tool we are using, which is filtering out a couple of noises and sounds. So we are trying all the different kind of software right now. And we talked about AI. Those tools are coming up right now in like once a week or something new is there. And there are already tools that are doing this stuff for you. So
yeah, but actually in the meanwhile, we're also cutting out a lot of ms and ers because there were some complaints about it.
Yeah, there were some. Most of the time, we were the ums and ers, and not our guests. But yeah, there was a tool that is called Decipher, I think.
Okay.
And this is exactly cutting out. So it's transcribing your podcast and it's showing the ers and ums, underline them, and you can just say remove all. Or remove a couple of them, but most of the time it doesn't sound natural right after that because the pause is not so long. But who are we to tell you how to make your content, right?
It's got to the stage now where when I bring up the recording and I use Audacity to go through the recording, I know what the waveform of an looks like. So I'm just looking at I'm going, that's probably an Yeah. And the other problem I have is occasionally I'll fill in a space with so. So, blah, 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 blah. And then that's how we build the database. So now we can create a user. So, yeah. And I'm sitting there going, why? Why am I doing it? Because it just makes work for me. But it's good. Funny you talk about doing a raw or uncut version. The problem there is my podcast would then go from PG-13 to, over 18s only. Too much swearing, too much profanity, too much frustration. So
I didn't know that you're cutting out so much. We try to behave at this podcast besides guests that are complaining about the headphones they get.
But funny enough, in terms of podcasting, I have to admit, we're going off on a podcast thread here, which I'm sure interests us and doesn't interest the listeners, but they can just bear with it. Is one of the things I think would be an opportunity for both of us is in terms of bringing it back to AI. Is obviously you've got a number of episodes in German. All my episodes are obviously in English because I'm spectacularly monolingual. I did some work with an AI recently on a video where I took a video, uploaded it to an AI service, and they transcribed the video to Spanish, including all the mouth movements and everything. So literally it looks like I'm speaking Spanish with my voice in Spanish. And I was like, surely this can't be any good. But it blew me away. It was amazing. In fact, the only thing it got wrong was because I was talking about 23C, it didn't understand text. So every time I said 23C, it said 23 degrees Celsius. But other than that, like I obviously didn't know if it was any good because I don't speak Spanish, but I sent it to a few Spanish speakers inside Oracle. You probably know Monica from the Apex team. And she came back, she said, she said the conversational Spanish is great. It's just the tech stuff it struggled with.
Yeah.
But I think, especially because podcast doesn't involve video, I reckon it would be good for example, you could take your German episodes and use an AI to publish them in English.
Yeah.
And I could take my English and publish them in any language.
This is also an announcement for our listeners. Now in the English episode, no, Caro was very scared now.
Yeah.
No, what we are doing like half a year, in the middle of the year, I started to transcribe each and every episode with, I think it's Mac Whisper, the framework under the hood. And this is transcribing everything we say and translate it into English, Spanish, and whatever.
Oh, cool.
And now we are including that into the podcast stream. So each and every podcast player that supports it can do some subtitles for your talk, and you can read with it, or it's just during the talk, it's going on a screen so you can read it. And also for YouTube. So you can choose from each and every language, and it's transcribing from the German translation automatically. So for every listener who doesn't speak German, you can follow the episodes we already did with the subtitles, which is basically just reading a book. Because it's text you can follow and you can read an interview. This is something I had in the beginning. I tried to did that. It was everything fine. Besides the name Death on Tape. It was Death on Tape.
Death on Tape.
I was like, welcome to Death on Tape. And I felt like we were some rock band or something. I don't know. And then I did like search and replace. And I found the next word. I said search and replace. Search and replace. Come on. You can't even get the name of the guest right. This would be embarrassing if we published that. And we did some tuning of that. And at some place I didn't care. So I said, okay, everyone knows that it's not Death on Tape. Besides, we have a very old guest, but yeah, right.
So much older.
So much older than we.
But another cool thing with AI in that space was I was hoping to go on the Latin America tour earlier this year, and just timetables and scheduling didn't work it out. But I saw that they were happy to embrace English speakers, because even things like PowerPoint now can do, you start presenting and it can do dynamic translation and subtitles as you speak.
Yeah. Cool.
And so the English speakers there were having translation to Spanish and Portuguese. And as long as the Wi-Fi was good, the audience was much happier because they could actually follow along even though the speakers were in English. So I'm hoping to use that to justify a trip to, non-English speaking countries next year.
This is what is happening on Mark Safe's each and every presentation.
That's true.
When he puts in his YubiKey in the laptop, it's doing some key, like pretending a keyboard or something, which is doing in PowerPoint a kind of a key combination which enables the live transcription on the screen. And then if he presents in German and it's not configured well, then you have like English words that sound like German words, and you have no one even can follow what's on the screen right now. So it doesn't have anything to do with what he's talking about. It said, all right, this is happening to me each and every presentation. I put out my YubiKey, put it in my pocket, disable it on the screen, and then go forward. So yeah, that's my experience with this, this service thing.
My worry is always that because I don't speak the other language, for all I know, I'm saying you should be using 23C because of this. And the subtitles are going, this speaker is a loser. Because you don't know. You're just like,
It's great if you do a presentation, someone comes to you after and says, the thing where you talk about yachting, right? Or golfing was pretty nice. And you said, what the hell happened to this? I was not doing next course to golf or whatever. Yeah, we will see where the future leads us. So the Office Suite is bringing so much AI in future. I saw that. So you have like, write a text into Office and say, I get the earnings report in Excel, put it into this PowerPoint presentation I got via email and Outlook yesterday, and please do the annotations from Frank, who did it like yesterday, sent an email, put everything together to a PowerPoint presentation. And this is also from Sasha Lobo, by the way. We try to be like greenwashing the company, so put some palm leaves on the slides. And what you get is like all the information from all the different Office products and put them into a PowerPoint presentation, right? this is something I'm looking forward to see. So they said that 60 companies are currently trying that in Germany, and they tried to roll it out in the next year, I think.
I worry that I'll give my slides to an AI and it'll say, you have 400 slides. This is a bad idea.
Yeah.
and it'll shrink it down to 10 slides. And I'll go, no, I don't want 10 slides. I want my original 400.
I want my 500 megabyte PowerPoint file, which struggles to open on every presentation laptop.
I have to admit, I do have some issues with PowerPoint in terms of performance, but that's another one. Another one for that. But speaking of AI and dragging in data from other sources, it behooves me to at least do a little bit of a promo for the fact that, have you seen our Select AI stuff that's coming in Oracle? Here's something that, I won't call this an announcement because this was already demoed at CloudWorld, but not a lot of people got to go to CloudWorld from Europe, which is facilities where typically if you're running a SQL statement, you would just select and you would have the columns and all the complexities of SQL. One of the things that we demoed at CloudWorld is you do select, then the keyword AI, and then your ChatGPT style of question.
Yeah.
Show me the sales for the last year. But unlike ChatGPT, which just says, well, I don't know what sales are in your company. I can give you a generic sort of, well, this is how I would write the SQL. This is what I would roughly do. But of course, it bears no relationship to whatever. The acronym's called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's RAG.
Yeah.
And that is one of the facilities we have now is you can pass information about what you have in your database in terms of what are the tables, what are the columns, how is it structured, as part of a response to an AI engine. Could be OpenAI, could be Cohere, we're partnering with, could be any of them. So now when you say select AI, what are sales for the last year, it sends, for your situation, this is the SQL we would run. Select some sales from, using one of our sample schemas, sh.sales, but it knows what you've got in your own database. So then it says your sales was $700,000 because now it knows it can run an SQL that you never wrote. You asked an English language question. It said, because I now know the tables and columns, here's the SQL rerun. I can show you the SQL if you want, or it can just give you the answer.
So is this technically working in the database or on the client? Or is it translation and stuff working on an cloud thing?
Combination of things. So obviously the data source is your own database. So we have it in our autonomous database. I would do a demo here. I had planned to do a demo this year at the conference here, but the Wi-Fi is a little bit challenging to get to a server in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And then what happens is obviously we want to leverage the ChatGPT style of facility where you can take an English language request and turn it into something technical. You don't want to do that in the database because now you're loading a full AI engine into the database, and next thing you know, you've got a 500 terabyte database, which 1 terabyte of which is your data, the rest is AI facilities. But we just do a REST call out to a provider AI facility, which says, here's the English text, but here's the context as well. Here's our tables, here's our columns, here's how they're related together. That all goes as one request. So basically your text and the context. And then it comes back and says, given that I now know what your data looks like, here's how the SQL you would write to do it. And so the nice thing there is we get to a point where ultimately, a lot of facilities in IT are really designed to help business users. The CEO, he's the person that gets on the phone or gets an email and says, what was last week's sales, and it gets sent off, and everyone in the IT department gets told, drop everything. Something's come from the CEO. This is priority 1. Someone go write a query. Someone do whatever. And for the last 20, 30, 50 years in IT, we tried to solve this by saying, well, we need to give the CEO a dashboard, something that they can understand. Because we give them a screen, you click here, and here's a pre-canned set of answers based on your questions you've asked in the past. But now this thing is now, just ask it. And eventually they'll probably do it into a microphone. But at the moment, they'd simply type in some text saying, what were last week's sales versus the same period for last year? And they'll get an answer, not of some fictional data source. They get an answer from your actual database using an AI engine to build the SQL. That's super cool.
And how do you... So when I think it sounds great, first of all, but then I remember, for example, some of the data models of my customers, and I
can
think,
see where this is going.
Yes.
How should it work there? So how do you feed this thing with information? So what table does what mean, and which column does
And I totally agree. What I've spoken about there is a utopian vision, in a perfect world, because we all know that in the real world, in our sales table, we have a column called total sales. And when you say, does that say total sales? I go, no, don't use that column. There's a column here called unaccounted for XY3. That's where the total sales is. That's where you need to get it from. We need to take that, add it to the total sales, divide it by the margin. Where's the margin? Well, we don't store that in the database. We go ask Betty in finance. She tells us that it's 11% this week. So, reality will obviously come into play as well.
I mean, this is definitely what I was trying to say beforehand. So the developers are not anymore just writing everything like SQL statements, programs, and whatever. They are ensuring that the model can train on based on the stuff we're doing right now. So what we saw with the testing frameworks in the database was that people started to use annotations for tables and columns, like what is this column for? So I could imagine that if this is something you have to do to train the model, to have each and every column edited or extended by a comment, like an English sentence, which is kind of understandable for the AI, and some keywords that are additionally to that. Not directly the constraints or something, so GPT knows which table is connected to another, but this is something the AI can understand. But this is something the AI cannot do by themselves. So we are getting busy then going to our data model and try to document it, right? So ChatGPT can read the documentation, or GPT in general, can read the documentation and understand the data model by your documentation. And I think this is where it leads to.
I agree. And funny enough, there is a tool, he puts his marketing hat on again, there's a tool inside Oracle that has been doing that for about 20 years. The concept of rather than generating code, you describe the requirements of what you want to achieve. And of course, that tool is called Apex. Apex is pretty much what you've just said there. You describe in metadata what you want to achieve. And Apex, you could say, has led the way, is a pioneer in that sense, because the database is now catching up, as you say, with things like annotations and even just simple comments. But that is, an Apex developer doesn't write code. They do a little bit of code here and there, and God forbid they're into CSS and JavaScript, but putting that aside.
We got it on record now.
But putting that aside, the vast majority of an Apex developer's time is describing the functionality they want. This is where I want the regions, this is where I want the items, this is how I want the page flow to work. They're not coding it, they're describing metadata. And so that's one of the cool things. I think Apex will actually really benefit from AI facilities, because people will be able to talk to an AI and say, I want to build an Apex app. And it's not going to write code, it's going to build Apex metadata. Because the last thing you want is an AI to be a code generator. Everyone talks about, AI is going to write my code. I think that's a nightmare scenario, because the AI is going to write beautiful code, several million lines of it. And then you're going to say, okay, now who's going to maintain that?
Another instance where I copy and paste the code and say, optimize it, find the error, right?
Exactly. And so, I view Apex as being a maybe lucky that it was a solution that suits AI in the sense that you never really generate the code. It's just interpreted metadata, because that's what AIs will love. AIs will love metadata to work with. So,
I mean, we heard from the Apex corner at Oracle that they are heavily interested in AI and starting to bring something up. So if you have any secret information for us from the team, no, just kidding. I think they need to do so much stuff to bring it out as a declarative way inside Apex right? So we as developers or IT affine people, we are getting frustrated if we try a new feature and it's not working at all, right? So Apex goes AI, and you open Apex and try to speak like, create a table and a form on it. And what it does is like, can you repeat that? I didn't get that. I'm not speaking Spanish by now. Can you repeat that in English? Can you speak louder? No, I'm not able to do that. Here is your button, right? and this is something I would say, okay, you shipped something which is not even close to usable, right? Yeah, we will see where this leads to. But the question how this works, like, is the model in the database and the calculation maybe spread from client to database, is the second we got GitHub Copilot and all the assistance stuff, everyone said, hey, it's a great thing to try on your private projects and things. But if it leads to a customer's workspace, I cannot send the code and the metadata and the context to another service in the internet. This can't leave my environment. So they said, Copilot is nice, it's cool, it's the future, but I cannot use it for my daily work. Instead of create a table amp and so on, and then I use this this code snippet and replace the column names and so on with my context from the customers. In this case, I would say if we have AI and the customer knows that anything leaves their environment to a third-party service, they will stop it. Even if it's inside Oracle Cloud, I think there would be people saying, this is not the right way. We don't want something to leave the database.
And I think AI is just a magnification, or those kind of services is just a magnification of the existing security challenges we've already had, or always had. Classic example is the amount of applications out there that use open source JavaScript libraries, because there's a bazillion of them and they're awesome. Yeah, every problem you have, someone has written a JavaScript library to solve that problem. You could almost say there are no new problems. You know, all the typical IT-related problems. You know, I want to validate an email address. I want to, call a REST service. There's a JavaScript library out there, and it's open source. The problem is a lot of these JavaScript libraries, were written to solve a particular problem by a particular person who, in all good intentions, said, "I'll make this open source so the world can use it." That they had good intentions. And of course, then someone says, well, I don't want to look after this anymore. And someone says, I'll take over it for you. And we have no idea who that person is. And you just blindly download these open source facilities, which, as I said, for the vast majority are going to be wonderful. But, that concept of, we already have this implicit trust in something that came from somewhere else that we have no idea where from. That's a worry, because it opens up so many opportunities for bad actors.
This is the content of, I think, one of our first podcast episodes from Devs on Tape. It was called Library Nightmares, episode 1 and 2. We talked about exactly this, what happened in a real example where some Node.js package in NPM repository was flawed and was injected, like code injected, and what happens right after that. And I think it was like for log4j.
Yeah, log4j and another one.
Yeah, I mean, we do that, but the difference is if we have an AI engine, it needs so much power to calculate on. So we don't have a problem in the Oracle Cloud because you can just get limitless hardware. You have to pay for it, obviously, but you cannot use the on-premises server right now at the customer's place to say, now you're doing AI. So here 1 terabyte of model at least. And then each and every question the CEO is asking, every systems has to be like shut down to have the power to answer the question. So this is something that has to be solved definitely. And you cannot give everyone a very, very high profile laptop to do it on the machine. I'm very, very looking forward to see how the on-premises thing is working then, besides getting another Oracle Cloud service bound to our system. We'll see.
Okay. I've actually prepared another technical question for you, where I want to know your opinion, but it's not as fancy as AI.
That's okay. We've been diving in all sorts of directions this morning.
I think Connor will answer this question using at least one time AI, right?
Could be. Maybe. We will see. Okay, so it's a bit story of this conference, actually. So I met one of my customers, and they talked about the 23C features and how they like this whole JSON stuff and how it would change their development, etc., fixing some problems. And they said they're already in the cloud. And they said something like, okay, the next year in autumn, when the 23C might be released, I don't know, they just want to update they directly want to update their environment. And I was surprised because most time a bit more hesitating.
Cautious.
Yeah, thanks. Cautious about this whole new stuff. And we already know your YouTube channel. You're doing a lot of videos also from the new features, etc. And I just wanted to ask you, of your opinion, would you also update instantly when the 23C is published, or would you do some other strategy?
I think probably since about 19 and 18C came along, we recognize the fact that no matter what we do, there's always going to be two types of customers. There's be customers going, for God's sake, Oracle, I need this feature. You told me it was coming. I need it. It's going to give me a business competitive advantage. Where is it? There's another half of customers going, just leave me the hell alone. I'm happy with my version of the database. Right? I don't want to upgrade ever. The only time I actually want to do any kind of patching, which is an impact to me, is if there's security issues. And there's always going to be these both types, I feel. And don't get me wrong, I think Oracle in the past have perhaps not done a great job with one or the other. You go back to sort of the Oracle 10, 11 days where there was like 5-6 years between releases. People who don't like upgrading, they're going, this is the greatest thing ever. The people that are waiting for a particular facility are going, what the hell? I got to wait 5 years, just to have petitioning? Come on. And then we sort of, went to maybe almost maybe too far the other way with 18, 19. There was going to be a 20 and a 21, where by the time people sort of were familiar with 18, we're going, you should be using 19. And they go, okay, I'll upgrade to 19. We go, yeah, you should look at 21. Yeah. And so people got frustrated at that. We've gone too far the other way, trying to satisfy the customers. They're saying, get us features fast. And then the people that don't like upgrading going, I'm spending 2/3 of my IT budget doing regression testing and upgrades. Give me a break. So that's why you would have seen this thing over the last couple of years, this thing between innovation versus long-term support releases. So with that background in mind, one of the things I do like that we've done in 23C is because we got a product out to people early, we got 23.2 out with that Developer 3 release. If you download it today, you get 23.3. So we've actually updated that release. Internally, we're now working with 23.4. I don't know if that will become the general available release. That's 23.4 is the one you get, I think, if you use the Oracle-based release on cloud at the moment. GA will maybe be 23.5, could be 23.6, etc. I view that as different to 19 because 19 came out as 19.3 and it came out on cloud and very quickly GA, etc. So there weren't several iterations of patches, bug fixes, security fixes, etc. By the time you get access to 23C for real, it's probably going to have been through 3 or 4 RUs. That doesn't mean I would say every single customer should just be leaping on board. Yeah. But what it does give you is increased confidence that if you are thinking, well, normally I wouldn't upgrade so early, because I know with 19 it was fairly raw. I think Oracle itself has learned some of those errors, and we've changed direction a little bit. So I think 23C by the time it goes GA will be pretty damn stable. And don't get me wrong, like I've enjoyed monitoring our database forum for the free release because when we came out with 23.2, there's all those people that, much like myself, we love going in and trying to find edge cases where we can break things. And someone's going, I tried to do a Boolean on a null constraint on this and put an index on it, and then I got an Aura 600. But we applaud that. Anyone that wants to go hunting to try and find things, every bug makes our product better because by the time we go GA, it's one less bug that is found out in the wild. So my advice for your customer would be, for me, if I was a business, when 23C goes GA, I would generally wait maybe 1 or 2 RUs and then start looking then. Because the challenge with GA is up until then, every single genuine production user will be running it on Linux and probably on Oracle Cloud, where we have total control of the OS, the stack, whatever. When it goes GA, you're running on, say, a supported Oracle platform, but maybe your OS patches aren't as up to date as ours, or maybe you're more up to date than ours. There's these little variations. So you run that risk, and that's why we do GA last. We do developer free first. Get people out there familiar with it. Then we go cloud first because we know the entire stack, right? And then we go the most volatile, which is GA. People are maybe running the same Linux as us, maybe they're not. They may be running the same hardware as us, maybe they're not. They've got some good deal with some cheap Chinese ARM manufacturer that does sort of budget almost correct chips. There's so many scenarios when it goes GA that the risk of encountering something that no one else has ever seen, it goes up a bit. So I would. What's the saying? They say it's great to be a pioneer, but you've got to remember that in the early days, most of the pioneers died. And so I like to follow the pioneers.
I was searching for the right way to finish this episode because we already late. So we don't have our categories with us because they are the same questions. So, I mean, in case if there's any technology that appeared during the day, during the year we didn't speak, you can tell us if you want to undo some if you want to undo a technological trend from the last year. Go ahead. But we would say that the categories are not necessary at this part. You already gave our or her customers and the people an advice. And if I would say how to close the episode of this Devs on Tape thing properly, do you have another advice for our listeners from Devs on Tape? Or do you have any very high secret information from Oracle to share with us? I have to do it again, Kevin.
I do have many high-level Oracle secrets. No, I have none. I would love to create the impression that the place I sit inside the Oracle organization is where they go, we should let Connor know about this stuff. But the reality is, if you drew the Oracle org chart and you start at Larry and Safra at the top, you go down one level and then about 13 more levels and then 5 more. And at the bottom of that, you'll find a bucket and a cabbage and me next to those two. That's where I sit. So rest assured, any secret things that have been worked on Oracle, it's not that I can't tell you, it's because they don't tell me.
This is the guy who's doing TikToks, YouTube, and social media stuff, and he's walking around each and every conference around the world. Please do not give him anything that could be dangerous for us.
Exactly right. But in terms of advice, my parting advice for anyone listening would be, enjoy this exciting time in IT. I've been watching Twitter just the last few days. You got this Sam Altman. He's a CEO of an OK. Now he's not a CEO. Now he is a CEO. Now he works for Microsoft. Now he works for OpenAI again. Now the board's gone. Now the board's back. It's an exciting time to be in IT. I would also say, because of that excitement, whenever anything exciting is going on, it's easy to get swept up in it. So always, what's the term? Trust but verify.
This is a fine last word of the podcast.
Yes.
I will not destroy it with a big outro, but thank you, Connor, for attending us again. See you next year, I guess.
No worries. I'd love to be back.
Thank you, Caro. And also, of course, thank you to our listeners who tuned in for this episode of Devs on Tape. See you in 2 weeks. And we're going to enjoy the rest of the conference today, I guess. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.